Welcome to NASA's Kennedy Space Center, where we are starting today with this gorgeous view of Launch Pad 39B. And on the pad, of course, NASA's Space Launch System rocket and Orion spacecraft. NASA is targeting next month for its earliest opportunities to launch Artemis II, 4 astronauts on a journey around the moon for the first time in more than 50 years. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. I'm NASA's Megan Cruz, and you are watching a press conference to discuss this week's wet dress rehearsal. The Artemis II launch team rehearsed fueling the rocket again ahead of launch, and so to discuss how it went and the road ahead, we have this distinguished panel for you today. We have Lori Glaze right next to me here, NASA's Moon to Mars Program Manager. And next to Lori, Charlie Blackwell-Thompson, Artemis Launch Director. And then finally, John Honeycutt, Chair of the Artemis II Mission Management Team. Thank you all for being here. And as always, we are going to start with some opening remarks from each of them, and then we will go to your questions. So, Lori, why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
You bet. Thank you, Megan. So it's been just, I think, a little under 3 weeks since we met to discuss wet dress number 1. So I just want to thank everybody who's here in the room and who's dialed in online to listen to the press briefing today. We're very excited to talk to you about how the wet dress went yesterday. But I want to start first by thanking our incredible team across all parts of the Artemis II program that have gotten us to this point where we are today. They have done an enormous amount of work to get us to this point. And just over, as I said, the last 3 weeks, a little less than 3 weeks, a lot of work learning from wet dress 1, putting in place some fixes to things like the seals, at the quick disconnect interface, doing some replacement on filters on the ground system side, thinking through various aspects of how we implement the wet dress rehearsal. And I can say for the most part, those fixes all performed pretty well yesterday, and Charlie's going to speak to that in a lot more detail. So that was really exciting. If you followed our progress yesterday, we were able to fully tank the SLS rocket within the planned timeline. We demonstrated our crew module closeout activities with the closeout crew, again, on the timeline. And we also successfully demonstrated the launch countdown. And again, Charlie will talk in a lot more detail. We did navigate through a few issues. You'll hear a little bit about some of those. But overall, the countdown went very, very smoothly. We do have work to go to get our systems ready for launch. We've already begun the data reviews from the wet dress yesterday, and there's some other work that needs to be done out at the pad. One thing I do want to say here today is that following that successful wet dress yesterday, we're now targeting March 6th as our earliest launch attempt. I am going to caveat that. I want to be open, transparent with all of you that there is still pending work. There's work, a lot of forward work that remains, including the post-wet dress analyses, of course. We do have some significant work to be completed out at the pad. Charlie will talk to that in more detail. And we also have a multi-day flight readiness review that will come up later next week. And so those things are all in front of us. We need to successfully navigate all of those. But assuming that happens, it puts us in a very good position to target the March 6th. We were fortunate yesterday to have several of our crew members present for the wet dress rehearsal. I was able to speak a little bit with Reed Wiseman, with Christina Cook, and Jeremy Hansen. They're all very, very excited. I was glad they could be here for the wet dress. They are really getting a lot of anticipation for a potential launch in March, and they go into quarantine this evening. So they will begin that quarantine later today. The excitement for Artemis II is really, really starting to build. We can really start to feel it. It's coming. And I really can't wait to welcome you all back here to Kennedy Space Center when we're ready to launch and fly this mission. Every night I look up at the moon and I see it, and I get real excited because I can really feel she's calling us, and we're ready. Thank you. I'm going to hand it over to Charlie.
All right. Thanks, Lori. Appreciate that. Well, let's see. Since we were here, Lori said a little over 2 weeks ago, there's been a lot of work out at the pad. So since WDR1, as you know, we had some leaks in our ground-to-flight interface there, and we went in and we changed both the 8-inch and the 4-inch seal in that plate cavity. I'm happy to report that yesterday both of those interfaces were rock solid. We saw maybe 1% or less in that 8-inch line in that interface, which is really solid. And then, and actually, it was a little less than that, and then about 1.5% in the 4-inch. So, really no leakage to speak of. So it was really performed well. So the work that the team did paid off. We did a hydrogen integrity test before we went back to wet dress. We felt that that was important to get a little understanding of that interface before we brought the entire vehicle up and tanked both stages and both commodities. So we got a little bit of data out of that helped us pinpoint that we believe the leak source was primarily from our 8-inch seal. We changed them both, though, because we were in there and it just made sense to go do that. Yesterday, we got into tanking. We gave the go for tanking at 9:28 in the morning, so we were a little bit ahead of schedule. Of course, the call to stations was the night before. Powered up the vehicle elements, got everything configured, got into all of our preps. We were ready for load yesterday morning, gave the go for that. We did make a couple of changes to our wet dress countdown from wet dress number 1. We added a little extra time into the hold before tanking and then in the hold after tanking. And we did that in the event that we ran into an issue. We know that it takes about 20 to 30 minutes to run that contingency scenario where we let the QD warm up and we re-init fill. So we wanted to have a little bit of extra time. Thankfully, we didn't need it for that. But overall, the test went through the tanking. It was really quiet and went well. We did experience an issue with our comm system. That was probably the most exciting thing that happened during the tanking scenario, but it wasn't related to the loading of cryogenic commodities. We didn't have the flight crew participating. We had them observing, but not participating actively in the test. In other words, they didn't go out to the pad, but we did send the closeout crew out to the pad. And they went through their timeline, their normal closeout of the Orion crew module, the last hatch, and the white room. All of that went per the timelines, and then we got into our terminal part of count. We resumed from our count at 8:32. We were targeting an 8:30 T0, initial T0. We were a little bit behind that coming out, but again, really close to the opening of the window. We had a planned hold. We were going to demonstrate that 3-minute MPS hold constraint. We have never done that before. We did that yesterday, and we were successful in doing so. We held the clock at 1:30. For the 3 minutes, we picked up. We actually went a little bit over the 3 minutes. We picked up and we counted down, and then we had a planned cutoff, and we went through our recycle with the flight hardware with a cryogenically fueled vehicle. Again, first time we've ever done that, validating our timelines. We expected it to take about an hour, a little over. We did it in 57 minutes. So very pleased with how that all went in retargeting a second T0. We picked up the count again at T-minus 10 minutes, and we counted down, and we had no holds, no planned holds, and nothing held us up in term count, and we went down and had a cutoff at 29 seconds. Which concluded the terminal part of the count, and then we got back into our recycle, and this time instead of retargeting to T0, we got into our drain. And I'm happy to report that through those 2 different targets of T0, when we wrapped all that up, we still had launch window remaining. So very successful day. I'm very proud of this team and all that they accomplished to get us to yesterday and then to go execute with such precision. And with that, I'll hand it over to John.
All right. Thank you, Charlie. Obviously, yesterday was a really good day for us. I thought the test went extremely well. The entire team really remained focused and vigilant throughout the entire test, and that includes the MMT. When we did the test 3 weeks ago, the hardware was talking to us, so we listened. And as Charlie mentioned, the remediation activities that we took turned out really well. But again, though, it was just another opportunity for us to wring out the system and validate and verify that we've got a good system in place before we put crew on the launch vehicle, the rocket, to go fly on launch day. I thought just kind of I had a little bit of time to reflect on the launch team and the MMT throughout the day, and I really felt like we've all gotten to a place where we want to be relative to how sharp we are and how we operate. You know, you see a lot of times relative to our launch frequency, and so we have to work really hard through training activities for all of us to stay on edge. Teams off looking at the data. I met with some of them this morning. So far, we don't have any indications of anything that we're worried about, but we're just getting started. So we'll go through that and see what the teams come up with and address those as needed. But overall, it was a good day for us. Megan, back to you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for those opening remarks. It's really great to see how we've learned from Wet Dress 2 and we had a successful learned from Wet Dress 1 and we had a successful Wet Dress 2. All right, so we are now going to invite reporters here in person as well as over the phone to ask their questions. If you're on the phone, remember that you need to press star 1 to get into the queue and then wait for a mic to get to you here. So we'll start over here. Marcia, go ahead.
Marcia Dent, Associated Press. To meet a March 6th launch attempt, when would the flight readiness review need to be held? When would the crew be getting? What other milestones between now and then do you have to be on time for in order to make that first time in March?